Junior year, there were no excuses. I was an upperclassman, I knew the system, and I got one more year of practice with my quarterback, Jalen Milroe, and my offensive line. I set a goal for myself to win the Heisman this year. Our season opener came against Wisconsin, and on the first play, I got the snap and Wildcat and took it 80 yards for the touchdown. Wisconsin was the only other team that I considered going to besides Bama and the Army while I was in high school, mostly because of the Jonathan Taylor comparisons. Weirdly, we're not even close to the same type of player, though. With a one-score lead late in the game, Coach Saban looked to me to chew clock at the end of this game. We needed to prove that we were better than 17th in the nation. I couldn't remember the last time that Alabama was ranked that low to start a season. I've been working on my burst in the offseason and mostly working on my 40 time getting ready for the draft, and I outran everyone to the end zone to give us a 2-score lead and put the game away. Up next, we had what should have been a really easy game against Miami of Ohio, and Jalen Milroe is going to take it himself on the option keeper, and we're going to get in the red zone and find Robbie Oots for a touchdown early in the second quarter, but we looked up again, and in the beginning of the fourth quarter, we were down 14-7 to Miami of Ohio, and we finally got back into the red zone with about 4 minutes remaining. I nearly picked up the first down on this run, and I did get pulled off the field. We scored a touchdown, but Miami of Ohio got a field goal with a 3-point lead with 20 seconds left. We would have to make something crazy happen. On the halfback screen, it went absolutely nowhere. And on the next play, we ran 4 verticals, and I called for the ball underneath. Didn't really matter anyways. There's only about 3 seconds remaining, and they intercepted it, and we took a huge loss to Miami of Ohio, probably hurting our chances of potentially making the college football playoffs this season, and potentially hurting my chance of winning a Heisman as well. Next week, we had a tough game against A&M. They were 1-1 as well, but they were ranked above us. It was 0-0 in the second quarter before Milroe threw a dot to Kobe Prentice to give us a 7-0 lead. I ad-libbed on a route, getting us into field goal range before the end of the first half, and then late in the third quarter, I would have my best player in this early part of the season. I would take a screen all the way for a touchdown, dragging a Texas A&M defender into the end zone with me. Got the call from Coach Sabino again to end the game up 10 and run the ball down their throats, and no, we're not going to go there this time, but up 17-7, we ran the ball all the way down to the 5-yard line, effectively ending the game, giving us the W, and now ranking us as the number 21 team in the country, which is still way too low. But we played our next game against Colorado State, and I was just bouncing off of defenders. I couldn't get into the end zone, so I got pulled off the field on second down, and we scored. Again, it was really irritating me that I wasn't getting goal line snaps despite my talent and build, and for me personally, it also hurt my aspirations of winning the Heisman potentially. After Milroe got picked off, we were down 3 in the fourth, and I was already getting flashbacks to our game against Miami of Ohio. I decided to take it in my own hands and got us down to the 20-yard line before getting pulled off the field again, and we scored another touchdown with me off of the field. We were up 21-17 at this point with 2 minutes remaining, and I finally got into the end zone for the first time of the game. It didn't get pulled off, and you can see here that Jamarian Miller really got all of the goal line snaps. I still had a really solid game though, and our next game came against Ole Miss, who is ranked 6th in the nation despite only playing 2 games up at this point, while we had already played 4. We definitely thought that they were pretenders, and we came into the game with that mindset. That being said, we found ourselves down 7-0 in the third and with nothing going on offensively. Midway through the fourth, we were already down 14-0, and the game was nearly over. I think Ole Miss thought that they had this game wrapped up, but we never lost that same mindset that we had. And I scored our first touchdown of the game, and with a minute remaining, we were only down by 7, but things were not looking great. Jalen Milroe took a sack, and on the next play on a halfback counter, I lost a couple of yards, but they did call a face mask, putting us basically into the red zone. And a few plays later, we were in the red zone, and Jalen Milroe finally scored a touchdown, giving us a 14-14 game with 20 seconds remaining. We go into overtime. We don't pick up the first down on third down, but Ole Miss actually missed their field goal on their first possession, and so we walked out with a crazy comeback W, and the play of the game was me getting into the end zone for our first touchdown of the game. Ole Miss fans were shocked, throwing bottles and trash onto the field, but we did not care. We were celebrating midfield. Getting this huge W over Ole Miss surely was going to put us in the top 10 again. But in fact, we would actually go into our next game ranked 16th in the nation with a 5-1 record against Arkansas. First play of the game, I ran for 40 yards, putting us into the red zone, and then on third down, eventually Jalen Milroe found Kobe Prentice streaking over the middle of the field for a touchdown to give us a 7-0 lead early in the first quarter. Also, a quick note about my dad. He's doing great, and after last season, he went into full remission, and he's actually looking really healthy. Later this season, he's going to come to a game against Virginia, along with a bunch of our other extended family. My dad told me that he was super excited to see me play in person, and he was really happy that I was the starting running back at Bama instead of sticking it out with the Army and probably ruining my football career. It really is great to have parents who support you either way, and they let you make your own decisions. We were still only up 14-0 with a minute remaining in the first half before Jalen Milroe threw this absolute dot to Kobe Prentice Prentice, and Kobe took it all the way down to the 1-yard line before being tackled, but that was actually great for me because I was able to get an easy touchdown from the 1-yard line. So we were up 21-7 at the beginning of the third quarter, and I had another explosive run, again trying to get another stiff arm off, taking it for 43 yards, and with 3 minutes remaining, I found the end zone once again, getting my second rushing touchdown of the game, and we were up 28-21 with 1:53 remaining. We picked up another first down and effectively ended the game. And what was absolutely wild was that after winning that game against Arkansas, we went from number 16 in the nation down to number 17 off of a W. It was hard to argue to be higher after watching that first play of the game though, and we were down 21-7 with 20 seconds left in the third quarter, and I was getting absolutely boxed apart from the one touchdown I scored with about 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter to give us only a 7-point deficit. But Tennessee did score another touchdown. Jalen Milroe got sacked on fourth down. We were down 2 scores with about 2 minutes remaining. We did get the ball back, and Jalen Milroe threw an absolute dot down the field to Kobe Prentice, giving us only a 7-point deficit once again, and we got the ball back somehow with 10 seconds remaining, and Jalen Milroe does it again, throwing it on the outside, finding his receiver all the way for another touchdown with no time left. Kobe Prentice taking it 70 yards to make it 28-28. What an insane comeback. But on the option on third down, we lose yards and we end up missing the field goal, and Tennessee walks out with the win. So despite an amazing comeback, we end up with the L, and I feel bad for Jalen Milroe, who had an absolutely insane performance in the second half of the game. It was finally time for our game against Virginia, with my whole family watching from the sidelines. My teammates and coaches knew how much this game meant to me, especially since my dad would be healthy enough to come to the game. I was fired up to play back in my state with a bunch of friends and high school teammates coming to the game as well. Despite how excited for the game I was, and despite how well I had been playing all season, I wasn't really the star of the game. After Jalen had that crazy game against Tennessee, he had another elite performance against Virginia, but as a runner. He was snatching up a lot of my yards on scrambles and read option quarterback keepers. Jalen shocked everyone with his scramble midway through the third for a touchdown. It seemed like the Virginia defense was keying in on me specifically, given that there was so much news about me returning home for this game on Twitter and in the newspapers. Every time I ran it, there were 2 or 3 defenders waiting on it. After that completion, we had essentially won the game, and Jalen Milroe finished as the star of the game, while I finished with 10 total yards on offense, 20 rushing, and -10 receiving. Our next game came against LSU, and it wasn't going to be as important to me personally, but it was definitely important to our opportunity to potentially play in the SEC championship game. Even though I had a 10-yard performance, I was still in the top 5 for the Heisman based on my efficiency running the ball and my effectiveness as a receiver. I knew if I wanted to keep that, I would have to turn it around against LSU. We were tied 7-7 at the beginning of the second quarter when I rushed in for my first touchdown of the game, and down 17-14 at half, I almost broke away for a touchdown with 10 seconds remaining in the half, but I couldn't quite do it. But on a halfback screen, I had some great blocks in front of me, and I took it for a huge gain down to the 35-yard line. Later in the fourth quarter, out of the backfield, Jalen Milroe found me almost for a touchdown, falling down right at the 1-yard line, but I immediately ran it in on the next play for a touchdown, giving us the W over LSU. And somehow at 8-2, we still weren't in the top 25, but we were playing our next game against Mississippi State, who was number 14 in the nation, and this would be our opportunity to sweep the Mississippi teams, having already beaten Ole Miss at number 6 earlier in the season. I scored my first touchdown of the game, and finally I felt like I was getting the respect of the coaching staff, finally getting those goal line touches I had been wanting all season. Later in the third quarter, Jalen Milroe threw a really suspect deep ball that got intercepted and brought back to nearly the 50-yard line. But it ended up not really mattering, as we did end up sweeping the Mississippi teams, and I ended as the player of the game with 20 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown. Our next game was the last of the regular season against Auburn, of course the classic Iron Bowl. We had beat them in the previous season, and we were now ranked as the number 19 team in the nation. In the Iron Bowl, you need your star players to show up, and Jalen and I absolutely showed up. He found me on the halfback screen, and I did the rest, following my blockers and taking it all the way for a touchdown. But Jalen did a lot of the work himself too. He was eviscerating the Auburn defense. With 40 seconds left before half, he found Robbie Oates streaking down the seam for a touchdown to give us a 21-7 lead. And what's even more insane is we got the ball back with a second left, and he did it again on the very next play for another touchdown to give us a 28-7 lead before half. Up 28-7 yet again, Coach Saban was calling on me midway through the third quarter to basically end this game running the football, and I basically did that, just running over multiple defenders on each play and finally getting the end zone, taking a 35-7 lead and having an all-around great performance, 2 total touchdowns and 160 all-purpose yards. Our next game was the SEC championship against Georgia, and we wanted that revenge badly, and I know that Coach Saban wanted it as well. The main difference for us was that Jalen Milroe and I had gotten so much better offensively from our sophomore to our junior seasons, and I say that just as I ended up fumbling the ball with a minute left in the first half, down 14-3. But guess who also got better this season? Georgia did. Georgia was 12-0, the number one team in the nation, so they were even better than they were last season, and with 2.5 minutes remaining, they were up 35-10 on us, and the game was basically over. Probably the most upsetting part was that we didn't even give ourselves a chance at the end of the game to actually get back in it and potentially win it. We were down at the end of the first half, and we never had a shot of coming back into the game, and I did not have a great game. It was probably my second worst game of the season, with my worst game probably coming against Virginia. We were up 14-0 early against Wake Forest in the Chick-fil-A Bowl, but the good thing was that my family got to come to this bowl game just like they did last season, and we were up by quite a bit before the end of the first half, but with 3 seconds left, I had a chance to basically put the game away, catching the ball underneath and taking it all the way down to the 10-yard line before getting shoelace tackled. Wake Forest put us in a difficult 3rd and 6, but we were able to pick up the first down and basically end the game up 21-14 with 20 seconds left. We walked off the field with the victory, but none of us were really happy because we had much higher expectations for ourselves, but I did end up having a good game, and I finished the season with about 1,500 rushing yards and about 300 receiving yards.